Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Katie, I'm a mixed media artist, and I love to create in sketchbooks. Today I'm going to be sharing a tour of my finished sketchbook, so this is the most recent one. I tend to split these into two because they are such chunky books, so if you want to catch part one, then you can see it here, but today I'm going to be running through the second half. This sketchbook is a Royal Talens art creation sketchbook. These are my daily drivers. I use these all of the time. They're really affordable, and this one is the 13 by 21 centimeter size. They do a few different sizes, but this is the one that I reach for the most. So let's start with our halfway point, which is where we got to in the last sketchbook tour video, which was this one. So I tend to use a huge amount of media in here, and it takes gouache really well. I would say it doesn't take watercolour very well, so if you are a watercolour artist, then this paper stock is probably not for you. But the way I use gouache for my base, it handles it nicely, and I basically throw everything at these pages. So this first spread is from a Patreon live stream that I did with a camping theme. That was really fun. I did that on a YouTube live stream for my patrons. So this was done with gouache. I did put down a base layer of the Posca acrylic marker, and then I worked with gouache on top. You'll see that I used the Posca quite a lot in this as a base, but I feel like it just adds a nice warmth, and the gouache layered really nicely over the top. These were timed, so they were relatively quick, and then I added on some coloured pencils and some Neocolours over the top, which is generally how I like to work, so you'll also see that throughout the pages as well. This was the same session, I think. This must have dried quite quickly because I worked on this in the next spread. Usually I work in two sketchbooks in tandem, but again, this was a really nice spread to fill. I really love the colours. The reference for this spread wasn't this colourful, but I wanted to tie in some of these pinky tones from this sunset image, and I really like how it turned out in the end. I always love drawing birds, so that was a nice one. Okay, I think this was also from a Patreon session. I believe this was looking for patterns in the wild, so I did use my other sketchbook and then finish this one for our last reference. This was done solely with Neocolour, which I haven't done recently, but I love using. It feels more like patchwork. I like adding in these pops of colour, so like the pink is coming in here and then this pop of green, as well as the turquoises and blues. I also added some other colours on his shell, and I feel like this one came together really nicely. It's a bit different for me, but I'm really pleased with it. More mediums here, so this is Pan Pastel, which I applied with one of the little sponges on a stick. This was from an Emma Carlisle session. So we're in June here. I think I started this sketchbook end of March. I didn't date it very well. Oh, April, it was April, so yeah, end of March to beginning of April, and I was already halfway from that point to June, and then it took me a lot longer to finish it, and that's because this was done on my daily art challenge. So I did a 100-day challenge at the beginning of 2023, which meant I filled this sketchbook pretty quickly, and then I stopped creating daily, and obviously that meant the sketchbook took longer to be filled. But it's really nice to see all the different mediums I use. So like I said, pan pastel and then some coloured pencils for the little details of these very sweet little bunnies. So this was recorded for the sketchbook creative retreat that Peggy Dean hosted in the summer, and Peggy kindly asked me to host one of the workshops. So I did it on gouache panels. We used a range of different references and then simplified the landscapes down to create this panel spread. It's pretty simple. I think the workshop was about 50 minutes, so I had to work quite quickly. But I really like this despite how loose it is, and it's a little bit messy, but I feel like it captures all the different moods for the landscapes. This was done on TJ Marston's Patreon. You might know her as Sketch It Studio. I'll leave a link to all these people that I mention, any of the Patreons and sessions like that down below in the description. But this was from TJ's session about colour and values, so we were doing different studies. This was really helpful for me because I don't tend to work in this way. I tend to just create and maybe think about it afterwards, whereas this made me think about what I was doing whilst I was actually drawing. This was also from the same session with TJ doing two different views. The style feels a little bit more cartoony for me up here, but this one feels a little bit more me, probably because I've got so much green in there, which is my go-to. But I really enjoyed filling this spread, and this was done with brush pens, coloured pencils, and a bit of Neocolor. I created this one in the summer as well as part of my work with Derwent Inktense. I worked with them and their new range of colours, and I did this plein air in London. So this was actually on my mini honeymoon. Mitch and I had gone to London the week after we got married, so I took my sketchbook with me and the Derwent Inktense paint pan set and created this plein air in the Rose Garden in Hyde Park. So I've got really lovely memories attached to this. I really like some of the colours, the pop of pink and the blue. It does feel different for me because I was drawing on location, and I've talked a lot on my channel about the difference between working plein air on location and the work I create in the studio, giving me sort of different feelings about not necessarily being work I love, but loved the process. So I feel like I remember things more when I draw them, so I definitely remember this trip to Hyde Park, and it just brings back those lovely mini-moon memories. This is a spread that won't have made it on Instagram. This was just a really quick one where I was doing some material swatching, trying to work out some colour palettes, and then a very quick 8-minute owl using acrylic markers. This was from a YouTube video. Again, I'll link all the YouTube videos that I created from here down below or up in the cards. This was comparing brush pens, so the Tombow brush pens versus the Ecoline brush pens. It's quite subtle, but I definitely think you can tell these are a lot juicier and also more vibrant. The Tombows have a great colour range, and I really like some of the more natural, neutral tones that I can get, but the Eco pens also allow for a bit more blending and they're a lot more juicier. A fish spread, which you'll know if you've seen any of my sketchbook tours before, there's always going to be fish in at least one of these spreads. I love drawing these. I reference these from the natural history book, so I just find that when I'm not sure what to draw, I tend to paint fish. And I keep it really loose. I tend to put on a 20-minute timer, put down my base layer of gouache, and then go on top with coloured pencils and Neocolors. Pretty sure there's another spread of fish in the sketchbook as well. Then we went to Stourhead, so this was the beginning of September. Mitch and I had a short break to Wiltshire, and Stourhead is a National Trust property. We'd never been before, but I wanted to take my acrylic markers and create plein air. So these were all done on location again, and I hadn't used acrylic markers out of the studio at this point, so that was really fun. It definitely makes things easier not having to take tubes of paint and brushes and worry about all that. To just have it in a pen really made a difference, and I really enjoyed creating like that. They are quite messy again, but I really like the colours here, and then I added some journaling as well. This was from a spread that I did whilst I was away. So I did this one whilst we were away in Wiltshire, and this one using just a photo when we were back. I was definitely influenced by Santi Sales here. You can see with the movement in some of the greenery, I feel like this is very inspired by Santi's work. These were some giant redwood trees and then a butterfly on some buddleia. I love this spread. This was turned into 2 mini prints for my Patreon print rewards, and I think they turned out really nicely, and I'm really happy with this spread as a whole. I feel like the lighting on the butterfly works really nicely, and the colours and vibrancy of these trees. This was painted on a Patreon video, so I record a main video every month for my patrons, and on this month I was combining narrative with people and in settings. So I don't draw much people, but it was something I was trying to do more of this year, and I actually love this spread. I'm really happy that I recorded the process to see it come to life, and I like how I stylized some of these people as well. I have kept things nice and loose as always, and you can kind of see that with some of the plants and where I haven't filled all of the paper. Again, you can see the beige Posca here for my base to work on top of, which is definitely a go-to for me, and I'm really happy with the colours of this spread. Another panel spread, these were from photos. I took so many photos when I went to Stourhead, and so I decided to do some very quick thumbnail studies using just a few colours. So this is a very limited colour palette, and using the photos in my camera roll to fill these little thumbnails. This was done with Tombows, so I've got the blue and the green and then the dark indigo pencil. I think that's it. So just the 3 colours and then the terracotta for the frames. But it was really helpful for me to condense the amount of colours down in those photos into these simple sketches. There are a few empty pages in this sketchbook I kept meaning to go back to fill, but I didn't. So I think that's just the way it goes sometimes with working sketchbooks. I don't always fill the full spread, then I move on and I want to fill a full spread with something, so then I'm left with these half pages. But these were very fun. These were some quick fruit studies using Tombow brush pens, using the really bright colours, and I did record a reel for this. So these were timed. I did the fig in 5 minutes and the pomegranate in 3. Definitely up the colours and tried to emphasise some of the shades that I could see, and I really was enjoying using this ultramarine blue as well for some of the line work. So this was from a Patreon session. The references were, but I did a bigger one in my A4 sketchbook and I wasn't happy with it. So I decided to tackle it all again and created these, which I'm much happier with. I really love the colours. It feels really warm. It kind of feels like romanticised. I used the beige Posca here and then gouache on top. And it just felt like it came together a bit better than the one I actually did on the session. And it's very rare for me to do the same references twice, so that was a really good exercise for me to work out what didn't work and then apply that to this spread to learn from and make me feel a bit happier about it. So again, this was people, and then I merged some pexels, so copyright free images, with my own photos from Stour Ahead to create this like narrative spread. I love this one actually. I created this with acrylic markers and I actually did this in bed because I was feeling unwell. Again, when I draw stuff I tend to remember the time a bit better and where I was at that moment. So this feels really nice. Although I was poorly, it was nice to just create, and I used acrylic markers. So I wasn't in my studio, I wouldn't be able to create with acrylic paint and brushes in the bed, but I was able to because of the acrylic markers. So there's a mix of them here. This is the Montana light blue that I mixed. The pink is from Molitor, I think, and then there's a few different colours of green as well that I've mixed myself. The darker green is actually an Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker from Faber-Castell. I'll be talking more about that in next week's video when I share some of my favourite art supplies from 2023. But I'm happy with this. I really like this foreground element here. So these photos I took when I went to Mottisfont, which is another National Trust property. I think it was like the week before, and I knew that when I saw these beautiful trailing nasturtiums and this view of the house in the distance that I wanted to draw it. So I'm really happy that I was able to take it from my camera roll. I take so many photos and they don't always turn into art, but I'm happy I did with this one and I really love the colours. It definitely feels like late summer to me. Okay, this one's a bit different for me. This was a challenge, so I was sent a photo from Nicola on Instagram to see how I would tackle it, and I thought that would be a really good challenge for me. So although it's different, I think it was helpful and I'm really pleased I did it. I filmed this for Patreon, so if you want to see this one come together as a real-time video of me talking through how I simplify a complicated image, that's available on Patreon. But again, I'm glad I filmed it because it was really helpful for me to talk through my process and explain how I simplify things, especially with the shapes of the fishes, and then obviously all the reflections and the water movement. This was done with gouache, coloured pencils, and then some little bits of Neocolor. Again, you can see that sky blue coming in here, and also the salmon pink. This is quite a full spread. It's not super neat when you look up close, but I really love this one, and again it was turned into a Patreon print. More fish. So this was end of October, again 20-minute fish. I just really love them. I feel like they have great character. I always amp up the colours so I saturate them more than they actually are. And I did start putting in the sizes as well, just to add those sort of journal vibes that I like to include on some of my spreads. And then the little colour palette down the side. I just feel like this is an easy spread for me to fill, and I always enjoy drawing and painting them. This one didn't make it onto Instagram. I'm not happy with this one. This was just after I came back from Vienna. So this is a reference that I took whilst I was out there and then drew when I got home. I was playing around with pre-prepared spreads. So this is some acrylic paint that I smushed on the page before I went. You'll see that on the next one as well, but I didn't fill this spread when I was there. I came back and did it. And I just don't think it works. It feels like two separate images. I think this one's better. So this was coloured pencil and then some acrylic markers. But it just doesn't link quite as well as I'd hoped with the coloured pencil here. I tried to use a different colour to try and push it into the background, but it just feels a bit disjointed. So this one I did create when I was out there. You might have seen snippets of this in my Vienna vlog when I did my solo art retreat to that city. And I definitely feel like this was my favourite spread. I really enjoyed painting this plein air. Again, I took my acrylic markers with me, so it meant I could paint outside without any issues. Obviously, I was on my own with my backpack, so it just made things really easy. And I had prepped the background before with this really nice light lilac paint, and then added on some simple details with the line work with the ultramarine blue. I did this back at the hotel, so again we've got another half spread. I did mean to fill this, but I was pretty tired, so I just did the one, again with the acrylic markers, the Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker, Neocolors and coloured pencils. This was also done at the hotel, but using a photo reference that I took earlier in the day, and started using the lilac acrylic marker that I'd filled myself and took on this trip. I really like this. It definitely gives the piece some atmosphere. I really like the colour between the beige Posca and then the lilac. I think that's a really nice combination. This is Karlskirche in Vienna, so a very detailed building, and it's a bit different for me because I really spent a lot of time on this, trying to build up some of the shadows and being really specific with my lines, whereas normally I would simplify it a lot more. So a bit different for me, definitely softer, but I still really like how it turned out. More work from Vienna. This was done plein air. Well, this one was actually done at the hotel, but I wanted them to be the same style. I wanted to fill the spread with these two different views. So this one was done at the hotel, and then this was done in the Schönbrunn Palace Gardens with a view outside to a church and some buildings in front. So I created this whilst there, and it was just really nice to create and try and fill as many pages as I could whilst I was in Vienna. Another one, you'll have seen these from the Vienna vlog, but this was a 15-minute sketch in front of the Belvedere. And then, so that was the upper Belvedere, and then this was the view down to the lower Belvedere, again drawn plein air in the park when I was doing my solo art retreat. I really like the colours in here. This was a mix of Tombows, the watercolour marker, coloured pencils and Neocolors, so no acrylic markers here. Now, this one I did and didn't share, so I think the next 3 pages I only shared with my patrons, so that was part of a video I did in November where I shared some of the pages I'd created. This didn't go on Instagram, I just shared it there, and now you're seeing it in this sketchbook tour. But I felt like I hadn't created as much as I wanted, and I was being really tight. I wanted to try and loosen up, so that was what this spread was all about, and I definitely feel like I did. I do like the energy in this spread, and it was a complicated reference trying to simplify it down. But it was just a really nice way to loosen up and try to worry a bit less. This spread I really dislike. This was drawn at the airport. I've never drawn at the airport before, so that was new for me. And I tried to keep it really simple with some graphite pencil lines. I never used that. I don't know why I did, but I took it with me, so I obviously wanted to try it out. But I think I would prefer if I hadn't put this Tombow colour down. I feel like if it was just a monotone study, it would work better. Now, this spread, I had planned on filling it again, but I ended up just putting some swatches here later down the line. But this was actually drawn on the plane, so again, I don't draw on the plane very often, and I was limited with the supplies I could reach. But I just referenced some photos on my phone during the plane ride home. This is probably my least favourite spread I've done in any sketchbook. This was a study of a Cézanne painting. So whilst I was in Vienna, I saw this, I think it was in the Albertina, and I actually got a postcard. So this is what it was. This is a study of a Cézanne painting done very badly. I did use my acrylic markers, and I basically wanted to see if I could mimic some of the brush strokes. I suppose I'm being a bit harsh on myself, but I think it's the colours I don't like. It's just too bright. I absolutely love this piece by Cézanne. This is called Gerhoft in dem Normandy, so I think that means farm in Normandy. But I love Cézanne's work. You'll know that if you've seen some of my videos from last year when I worked with the Tate. But I just didn't replicate it very well. I couldn't get some of the marks, and so I was disappointed in this spread. This one was a fun one, a 1-hour drawing session with Emma Carlisle. This was when I was starting to limit my colours and try and work with limited colour palettes a bit more. It's not something I usually do. You'll have seen I've done it once or twice in this sketchbook, but I feel like something really clicked when I did this session. So this is just 2 colours. This is with a 553 Tombow and then the dark indigo luminance pencil. They were really fun images, and I enjoyed building this up using the Tombow and layering it to create the different colours, and then using the luminance pencil as well in different tones. This was some practice for some urban sketching. So in November, our theme on Patreon was urban sketching. So these were some warm-ups for before I did my live call on Zoom with them. I used coloured pencils, and for the base I used Ecolines and Tombow brush pens. So I find that's a really quick way to put down colour and then work on top. I was trying to simplify the scenes. Actually, this reference is the exact same as this one, but I've just turned it into a portrait image, and I definitely think this one is better. I much prefer the colours and the tones. It feels a lot softer for me. But I always enjoy working on top of brush pens to build up from that texture. And these were quite quick as well, 15 minutes each. So this was from the Zoom call that I did with my patrons, where I was teaching them how I simplify scenes. So I feel like I learned a lot when I was in Vienna, and then I applied that and led a session on my Patreon with some different exercises. So I really enjoyed this one. I did fill some other spreads in my other sketchbook, and this was towards the end of the session, so slightly longer timers. This one was 30 and this one was 40 minutes. But I really like how they built up. They feel very full and like a city scene, which Vienna definitely was, and filled with the autumn colours and the lovely blue skies. Another spread that I filmed for Patreon, so again I was playing with the limited colours. I really like looking through sketchbooks because you can see the themes emerging, so again I was trying to play with that. These are 2 acrylic markers that I mixed up myself with the empty Montana markers, and I really like this. I filmed it real time for my patrons to show them how I simplify the scenes again. So this was quite a complicated image using a reference from a book, and I love this. I think it turned out really nicely. The other one is in my other sketchbook, but I like the simplicity. It was at night, and I feel like that comes through because of the colours I used. And then it wasn't very long, maybe 15 minutes for this one, so there's a nice energy. And yeah, like I said, I feel like I have unlocked how to use limited colour palettes now, which is really nice. This was done on my 60k and 8k celebration. So we hit 60k on Instagram and 8k here on YouTube, and I did do a live stream for that. You can find all the live streams I've done on YouTube under my live tab on my YouTube channel page. So if you want to see this come to life and me create real time, then that's where to go. And if you like that, then I do that every other month on my Patreon as well. I generally only do it on YouTube when we reach these milestones, but it's always lovely when I do. So nice to chat to you and also see what you create from the references I share on the screen. I love seeing it when you tag me on Instagram. So really lovely feelings with this. I like it more than I did at the time. This bird I was quite disappointed with, but I like how it sits together and the pink that links them. Okay, this was done on a recent Patreon session. So this was our YouTube where we were drawing from Christmas movies. So the top one is from The Holiday and the bottom 2 are from Home Alone 2. Again, you can see the beige Posca for the base, which just creates a really nice atmosphere and warmth. Really love combining it with this blue. So I did use some gouache here, some Neocolors and coloured pencils just to build up those soft textures. I feel like December has really been a month of limited colour palettes for me, which has been really fun to explore. And I'm pretty pleased with how these turned out. This page was done in an hour, and I feel like the atmosphere and the textures built up are definitely something that I want to continue exploring. Okay, we're coming up to the last few spreads. If you saw last week's video, you'll have seen me create these, so again, I'll link that up in the cards and down below, because I was determined to finish the sketchbook, and again, you can see the limited colours coming in here. The beige Posca for the base, and then the slate grey Posca for the blue. And then some Neocolor as well, so I used the orangish yellow and the sky blue there. And I did add in some brown, so it's not super limited, but compared to how these photos actually look, there's definitely a lot less colour in them. And I really enjoyed condensing them down. These were referenced from a trip I took to Prague with my sister to go see the city and the Christmas markets, and it was just wonderful to see the snow. I've never seen like proper thick snow like that, so that was a really fun thing to see, and it definitely inspired me. I used the white Neocolor over the Posca because it shows up better on the paper, and so I feel like I wouldn't have created this spread obviously if I hadn't gone to Prague, and I wouldn't have created it in a limited colour palette if I hadn't done all the previous experiments. So again, that's why I like seeing it through a sketchbook, because it really shows how things lead into others, and even if you create a bad piece, or in your mind it's bad, it will lead to something in the future. So I don't think there is such a thing as bad art. I think we can just learn from them, and even subconsciously it might lead into a future piece. So on that same video from last week, I created this spread, which is a lot softer. I love the vibes of this one. It definitely feels very wintry and calm. I think that's from the lovely light cobalt blue I used, and then the beige. So again, reference from photos I took to Prague. And I just love the vibes of this spread. And then last up is this page of swatches. I did fill this page when I was trying to work out what colours to take to Vienna with me. And I do tend to always fill the very last spread with swatches. So that's that. That's the entire sketchbook filled. Very chunky. These Royal Talens sketchbooks have 80 sheets, so a lot of pages in here to fill. And this one took me from the end of March through to mid-December 2023, so just over 9 months, and I love seeing it. Like I've said a few times in this video, it's really nice to see how things are linked together, how ideas can develop, and even if you're not realising how one thing from the start can lead to another. I also really like seeing the progression. I can see that I'm much more confident with my limited colour palettes now, and although I might not have moved on in terms of like skill, I probably have, but I feel like I'm at the same sort of level. It's still really nice to see these ideas and see the different subjects that I've created. So probably at the beginning of the year I wouldn't have thought I'd be doing urban sketching, but that was inspired by my trip to Vienna. So really nice to see my ideas and sketchbook develop. A huge thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched part 1, then that will be linked down below. As a sketchbook artist, I always recommend keeping one. I feel like there's so much experimentation and fun that you can have in the pages. So a huge thank you for watching. I hope you have a creative week ahead, and I will see you next Sunday with a new YouTube video. See you later.